Hi everyone, so Miss Amy sent out the ingredient list for the challah and I just wanted to start prepping it for you. So this part takes about 10 minutes. So you have to let the yeast ferment or bubble, if you will. So we use 2 packets of yeast. I know that there was like a measurement sent out in the email. It's basically 2 packets. If you wanted to double this recipe and get 4 giant loaves, you would use 4 packets of yeast. So we cut open our yeast. Okay. I like to use a big bowl so that way when the challah starts to rise, there's room in there. And here we use 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I keep my sugar in a nice little container, and it is baking, so you should keep it as level and exact as you possibly can. You put that in. And you do want to have warm water, not hot water, because you will cook the yeast and you don't want to do that. So you want some warm water. It's 1 3/4 of a cup. And you kind of like swirl it around, the sugar and the yeast, so it's nice and incorporated. Make sure you have a spoon handy so you can gently mix it. You don't want to overdo it. So you pour that in and you gently mix. I use this spoon all the time, every time I make challah. And we're gonna let this sit for 10 minutes. Now, if you don't see it bubble, which I will show you once the 10 minutes have passed, your yeast is dead and you need to start over. I know, it kind of stinks. But this is a good thing to do with the kids. You can have them measure out the sugar, you can have them measure out the water, pour it in, do a gentle mix, and just leave it alone. So we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes and then we'll come right back and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay everyone, it's been 10 minutes and as you can see, the yeast and the sugar and the water have all combined and got married together and created these wonderful little bubbles. This is what you're looking for. If you don't see this, throw it out, start over again. Your yeast is dead. So just make sure you check the expiration date on your yeast. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix this again a little bit to get rid of those giant bubbles. It's gonna feel a little thick and heavy. That's the sugar, that's okay. So I like to crack the eggs. It's actually what you're supposed to do. You crack the eggs into a cup to make sure that there aren't any blood spots in there. If there are, it's not kosher. If you get a shell in your eggs, I don't know if anyone knows this trick, just make your fingers wet with water and you'll be able to pull it right out. See? Done. So we put that in, that's 1 egg. So the way I remember it is however many packets of yeast you put in, that's how many eggs it needs. So if you put 4 packets of yeast, you'll need 4 eggs. If you put 2 packets of yeast, it's 2 eggs, in case you don't have the recipe in front of you. So we mix this up, get the eggs in there nice and incorporated. Doesn't have to be perfect just yet. We'll have an opportunity for that. Then you are going to put 1/2 cup of oil. For the full recipe, it's 1 cup, but it's 1/2 cup of oil or 4 ounces. I am a little neurotic, and so I use a scale. You don't have to do that. You can measure it out in your measuring cup, 1/2 cup. So I had my spoon in there. Four ounces. Oil's done. And then we need our kosher salt. And we need a tablespoon of that. If you forget the salt, as I have done in the past, it will taste bland and your kids will remember it forever and ask you every single time you make challah if you remembered to put the salt in. So we mix it up. Now this is just the liquids, and what we're gonna do is we're going to add the flour. I only ever use King Arthur bread flour. You can use gold medal bread flour. I'm not a fan of it. I just don't like the way the challah comes out when I do use it. As I said before, I put everything in a separate container. What you can do is you can use your measuring cup from before to put it in. It's not an exact science. It's all by feel. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you put in all of your heart and your intention into it, all your love, all your kavanah, because otherwise it won't be sweet. And that's the most important part of making challah. So you want a nice, sweet, delicious, yummy challah. Again, this is something the kids can help you with. I know Jacob and Daphne love to do this part with me, but we're homeschooling. So I'm just doing this on my own right now to show you guys. They really love helping with the braiding part, which they'll probably get it on later on in this video. So we're mixing this in. It's going to be super wet. You're probably thinking to yourself, Kim, oh my gosh, there's no way that this is going to turn into a dough ball. Rest assured, it will. At a certain point, you're going to want to take any of your jewelry off, like your rings or anything, and you're going to get your hands in there and start really working it. So you do get a little floury while you're doing this. Okay, so you're adding some flour and you're going to mix it up. You're going to see it's going to start to get a little bit tougher. Make sure you're incorporating it. You really can't overmix this yet, so don't get scared of that part. You see how it's starting to get a little thicker. It's still wet, so it's still sticking to your spoon. If you touched it right now, it would be all over your hands. I don't touch it just yet. I keep adding, I'll show you when I actually start to get my hands in there. Okay, that is a 3/4 cup that I'm using. So if you want to use a 1 cup, that's fine. Okay, so now we're really starting to get in on it. This might be the last that I add. So here is where we're going to start incorporating by hand. You want to pull it from the sides, you want to push it down. It's still on my scale. Make sure you're mixing it in. Hope you guys can see that, how it's getting. Yeah, probably not gonna add any more flour to this. Really trying to get all of that flour in there. I didn't put the oil away. Don't do that while you're doing this. You're gonna wind up touching it again. You're also gonna need some plastic wrap. I took that out. And we're gonna cover it to let it rest for at least an hour. You can throw this onto your countertop. I hate doing it because I don't want to clean all that mess up. But as you notice, we're starting to really get a nice dough ball going on here. So you just keep mixing it a little bit. You don't want it really on your hands. That's how you know it's like a good. If it still feels too sticky, don't be afraid to just add a little bit more flour, not too much. Don't over flour it. Just do a sprinkle at a time at this point. Get it really worked in there. Okay, so here is our dough ball. I'm kind of tucking it under a little bit so you guys can see. All right, you can leave that like that. You want to leave it in your bowl. And you're going to pour just a tiny bit of oil on top, and then you'll flip it and pour a tiny bit of oil on top of it again. And flip it around. Okay. Then we will grab some plastic wrap and cover it. So we're gonna cover this with some plastic wrap. It just needs to just drape it over. You don't need to like get in there and cover the challah. So fancy. Now, in the wintertime, yes, I know this sounds crazy. In the wintertime, I always put a towel underneath my bowl. The granite, if you have granite countertops, will suck the warmth out of the challah and it won't rise. It's very temperamental bread, so it likes to be in warm environments. So I tend to put a towel underneath, and then I put not one, but 2 towels over it. I would not hide it in a dark place, only because this bad boy can rise, and if you forget about where you put it, then you're gonna have a big blobby mess. So I cover it and I leave it there for at least an hour. Usually preschool mamas, what I do is I'll make this in the morning on Friday, and I'll go and drop Daphne off, and then when I come back, it's nice and risen, and that's when we'll go through the braiding. So see you in an hour. Okay, so it's been at least an hour, if not for some of us more. And so we uncover and we see that the dough has risen. It should be slightly larger than what you started out with. Again, if it didn't grow, maybe there was something wrong with your yeast. Start over. I hate saying that so much, start over. I've had to start over a couple of times, not today, but in general. So I hope you didn't put your bread flour away. If you did, you need it back. And what you want to do is you want to get that, and you want to lightly dust your surface area, because we are going to take this apart. Now, if we were in a group setting right now with everybody and we were making a massive quantity, we would have to recite a special blessing for separating the challah. If you want to know what that blessing is, it'll be in the recipe that, the full recipe that Amy sends to you. I will say it, but we don't need to do it. You don't need to do it at home. There are specific weight requirements. Usually bakers say it because they're making it in such large quantities. The blessing is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lehafrish challah mein ha'isa. And then once we've separated, we'd have to take a piece of the challah apart, and we're supposed to burn it like as an offering, and we would say Harei zo challah. Some people just toss it in the garbage, but others, if it's large enough, when you're doing it in such a huge amount, they will burn it. So all I'm doing is I'm separating it. I'm doing this by eye. It doesn't have to be an exact science. I'm going to show you how to do a 3 braided challah, and I'm also going to show you how to do a 6 braided challah. So we'll start with the 3 braided one first, because that one's easier. So we just roll it out into a log, and you might have to add some more flour, and it should feel squishy to the touch. And again, not an exact science, but when you think you've gotten it where it's a little bit even throughout, you separate 3 pieces from it. Okay, it's gonna be a big challah, it's not gonna be small. You put them off to the side, and you wanna get 3 logs out of it. And a lot of dusting, a lot of rolling. This is the fun part with the kids. Daphne didn't want to help. She's too busy watching Frozen 2. Thank you, Disney Plus, which allows me to do this in peace. Do I have a visitor? Mm-hmm. So Jacob wants to help. Jacob has to wash his hands. Mm-hmm. He'll come, he'll wash his hands, and he will help me with the challah. Make sure you have your pans. I use silk mats. I think that's what they're called. to prevent sticking. You can also use aluminum foil. I'd lightly put some dusting of flour underneath. That way it prevents it from sticking. You'll get that little bit of white under your challah, but that's okay. It doesn't do anything. You can easily dust it off. But when you use these mats, it definitely prevents it from sticking and you don't have to use the flour. Hey Jacob, why don't you get the stool? Get the stool, it's easier.
Okay.
So we'll dust again. We have plenty of these to go, so. All right, bud, come on over. So Mom has it floured a little bit. Say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Okay, so how about you roll that out into the log, right? Well, Mommy works on the other one. You gotta try and flatten it and push it out, right? Flatten and push it out. Flatten and push it out. Stretch it out with your hands. Try and make it the same length as the other one that you did. You don't want one shorter than the other. You don't want one longer than the other, although that doesn't really matter sometimes, right? Here, you work with this one while Mommy does this one. Flatten it out.
Yeah, you want enough dough that you can like eat it.
We eat the raw dough?
No. Like eat it and it actually tastes good.
Yeah.
You want it like thick.
Yeah, but why are you squishing it back together?
Oh.
Silly. I'm trying to make it thinner and you're making it thicker. Right?
Yeah.
That's silly. Do you remember how to do the 3 braided challah?
No.
No! What does Mommy always do?
You always do the 6.
I always do the 6.
Yeah.
Because it looks pretty? It looks super beautiful. All right, and then we put this piece here. And then let's just do this last one, and then you can help me with the braiding.
Yeah.
And then
the braiding's not so easy if you don't have a mommy.
braiding is not so easy if you don't have a mommy. Well, you can have anybody help you. You can have a mommy help you, a daddy help you, a grandma, a grandpa, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle, a special friend, anybody.
But I think it's the best with the mom.
You think it's the best with the mom? And again, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're adding all that love and kavanah to it, you know, with intentionality. You don't want to be stressed or upset because then the sweetness goes away. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's so true. So here we have our 3 rolls. I know they don't look super gorgeous, but it is what it is. So just like a regular braid, what you would do,
You would pinch them together.
well, not yet on the 3 one because we don't do this very often. We would cross them over, right, like this, right?
So if you have a...
So what we did was we took the right one and we put it over the middle one, right? Then we moved that middle one over to the right a little bit. And we took that left one and we put it in the middle. Then for those of you who actually know how to braid, you just regular braid, okay? So then it'll be right towards the middle, left towards the middle, right, bud? So take this one, put it in the middle, right? And then this one, put that one in the middle. So it's always trying to get something towards the middle, right?
Yeah.
Then you kind of got to flip your pan and do it to the other side.
Yep, just like that.
But I do it in the reverse. So I'm going to take the middle now and I'm going to bring the right one underneath, right? Now we're going to go under. We're going to take this left one and bring it to the middle. Take that middle, bring the right one in. Left one in. Watch your hands, bud. Let people see.
And you just have to like twist tie it.
Yeah, twist tie it like that. Okay. So this is going to rise. So what I usually do, if I'm only making one, which is what I usually do, and I just take a little piece and I make a roll on the side.
Yeah.
But you cover it with that plastic wrap that you had before. And then you take those wonderful towels and you cover it again. So this, if you're just doing a 3 braided challah, you end here and all is good. But if you want to be ambitious,
yeah, and make it look beautiful,
you do a 6 braided challah.
Hard.
So I used to actually measure out by grams, equal amounts for our 6 braided challah. Because I'm a little crazy. Mommy's a little crazy, right?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay.
also want floury hands so you can actually get a grip on it, right?
Well, yeah, so it doesn't stick to you. So right now I'm breaking off 6 pieces.
And you roll them out.
And we're gonna roll them out,
Just
right?
like the 3-braided challah.
Now, if one looks smaller than the other, one looks absolutely huge, you can take and like
Just
put it
push
on top.
Yeah.
No problem.
Ba-da-ba-ba.
So these 6 balls are gonna turn into 6 rolls. All right, Jacob. So I move them out of the way.
You take one, you just roll it like the 3-braided challah.
Yeah, roll it like 3-braided challah. Now I like doing it this way because I think it allows for a more even baking. Whereas I personally don't feel that the 3-braided allows for even baking. That's just me.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
You could do whatever you want. That's the beauty of challah. Also, I like to do the 6 because sometimes we get creative and we make a rainbow challah.
Yep, that's why you need that's if you wanted to make rainbow challah.
Yeah, and what we would do is you just add food coloring if you wanted to do a rainbow challah.
But we're not going to do that.
No, we're not going to do that today. Here, you can work with that one now. You want to make sure that your surface stays floured.
Yeah. Flour, please.
And once we braid them, we are actually going to let them rise again. Again, usually let them rise for like 2 hours. So right now it's about 12:30, 1 o'clock. I would do this before I was going to pick Daphne up from preschool. I would braid, and then by the time we got back from picking everybody up from school, that's when it was ready for me to throw into the oven. So around 3, 4 o'clock. For all my working mamas out there, I know that that's kind of hard to do. So you just have to sort of manage your time. You can totally start this overnight. You'll get a super huge amount of dough overnight if you just let it sit. You can braid it first thing you come downstairs, like when you make your coffee and you're just getting ready for the day. And ideally by the time you're about to ready to leave, if you have 30 minutes to spare at most, you can bake it and it'll be done for you. Or you can leave it and let it rise, but it'll be a gigantic
Glumpy, flumpy thingy.
Yeah, it'll be huge.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 more to go.
This one's the easy one.
That's the easy one?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think you need 2 people to make a 6-braided challah if you have a mom or a dad or anyone.
You don't need 2 people.
Yeah, but sometimes it would be helpful too.
Yeah, sometimes it would be helpful.
Yeah, because then the kid could just roll it out. And
the kid should do everything.
Yeah.
Right? The kids should just do everything and make it easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the moms and the dads.
So this is a 6-braided challah.
Whoa.
That's okay. So to make it easy,
you just clump it up together.
So we line it all up together, and I actually pinch the top, okay?
Yeah.
Pinch the top. Then I separate 3, okay? Yeah. And I take the furthest one on either side, and I cross it over, okay? So it looks like that.
Yeah, it looks like a ribbon.
Yeah, you could say that. The one that you put on the top, you want to bring down to the center, right?
And then it looks like a thing.
So that's the start of it. So now you're going to take the second one in, okay? So you have this guy hanging out over here. You're going to take the second one in, and you're going to bring them all the way over to the opposite side, okay? Then you'll take that guy over here, and you'll bring him down to the center. So you'll always have 1 in the center, 2 on each side, 1 hanging at the top. Then you take that second one on the opposite side.
And you cross it over.
And you cross it over. Then you bring this guy down. And you see how it's starting to form already with your braid. Okay?
You just keep doing that.
Yes. Then we take that second one again. Bring it down. So when you're taking it away from that side, when you're borrowing that piece, here's that piece we're borrowing, and you're bringing it over, you're moving that middle guy over, okay, to that side where you stole it from. Just think of it like that, okay? Take that piece, push this guy over to make room for our middle guy to come down.
And the top looks so good. Like when you're a good braider.
Yeah. And when you get to the end, it sort of gets a little trickier.
Yeah, you
right?
just like have to.
You have to like sort of stretch and pull and stretch and pull.
Yeah.
Stretch and pull, stretch and pull.
Pull.
Stretch and pull, stretch and pull. Oh my
stretch and
goodness, stretch and pull, stretch and pull. And then you just mush it all together and you hide it underneath. And you kind of stretch it out just a little bit.
And you got a 6 braided challah.
And you got a 6 braided challah. So you're gonna let this rise for at least 2 hours. You'll cover it with some saran wrap. You can put a towel over it. Again, same trick. Put a towel underneath it, depending on where you put it. Hopefully it's a nice warm spot. And we'll come back and you'll see how it's risen. Okay, so it's been at least 2 hours since you left your challah to rise the second time. So now it's time for the egg wash. If you prefer, you can use egg whites. There's nothing wrong with that. You can also do 0 egg wash. There's nothing wrong with that as well. Or you can use a whole egg. And since we have 2 giant loaves, I think 1 whole egg will be suffice. Mix it up. And I always like to add a little bit of water. Makes it a little looser. It's ideal to have some sort of pastry brush on hand to do so. You can just pour it over, but it won't be even when you do that. So here's for the big reveal. This is our 3-stranded challah, 3 braided challah. Be sure to take the plastic off. We don't need it anymore. Okay. So we take our brush and we gently brush the egg wash on there. As much or as little as you'd like. Make sure you cover all of it. Don't worry if it drips down to the bottom. It'll just crust up. It won't burn. It won't make any smells or anything like that. You can, if you want, put some seasoning on there. Some people like to put sesame seeds. Some people like to put poppy seeds. Some people like to put just salt. Other people, like Daphne and my husband, enjoy the everything bagel seasoning, which he so eloquently dropped off. So you put this on. You can be extremely generous with it. You can be extremely light with it. So when you're baking 2 at a time, you do want to be mindful of the oven. You do want to have it set at 350 degrees. Every oven is different. Here's our 6 braided challah. So I usually put it in for at least, when you're doing a single one, at least 18 to 20 minutes. It could take longer, again, depending on your oven. I use the convection bake, and so it cooks a lot quicker when I do that. I'm gonna leave this one without any seasonings on there, and we'll pop these in the oven. I always set a timer, but make sure you watch it. You're looking for a golden crust since you're putting the egg wash on there. You're looking for it to be a little firm to the touch. You don't want it to be the same color as this. You don't want it to be white. And if it looks like that in certain places, then it's not cooked through. So we're gonna pop these in the oven and then we'll take them out and you'll see what they look like. I tend to put, if I'm doing 2, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. You might want to stack up just a little bit for flow. Set our timer. There you go. Okay, so they are done. So we have a nice golden color. This is our 6 braided challah. See that? And then we have our everything 3-stranded braided challah. That's what that beauty looks like. Now, you can leave it to rest for a little bit so it's easy to touch. But you put it on a challah plate, you put your lovely challah cover over it, or the ones that the kids made you. and then you just have a wonderful Shabbat meal. So I hope everybody enjoys, and thanks for watching the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.